It's sort of what was up last month, but actually, you can get out there and see a lot of these objects right now. So what this is a Messier Marathon. Some folks may have heard of this. This is an attempt to see all 110 Messier objects in one evening. This whole thing started in the 1970s. There was a club in Spain that started it. There's some folks in Pittsburgh who were the first ones recorded doing it around here. And then Don Mackholtz, some of you met Don Mackholtz. He was in the area before he passed away. He was the one who really sort of got it popularized through the San Jose Astronomical Society and Sky and Telescope, as you see there. And there are a couple books, I think Gary got them, but there's
just one.
Just one. So there are two books about this. One of them is actually an early version of Don's guide to doing the Messier Marathon. So if you're interested in that, please take that book. So how do you see all the objects in one night? The key thing is really the timing. March turns out to be the one time of year where you can catch everything. You're going to catch the winter objects right in the evening before they set, and you're going to stay up all night and then catch the summer objects right as they're rising just before dawn. So you really need good horizons for this. You need to have pretty much clear, all the way down at sunset in one direction, and then you can see all the way down to catch the objects just as they pop up right before sunrise. The other key thing here too is that you need a good view to the south, especially where we are. Up here we can't actually see all 110. We're too far north to see M30. But if you were down more towards Central California, you could actually catch all in one night. Equipment-wise, a medium-sized telescope. I mentioned that C8 before. I used an 8-inch SCT, just like the one I mentioned, to go see all these when I went out last month. And that's just a recommendation. You really can do it with any telescope. You can do it photographically. Key thing though is being prepared. Make sure you've got all the accessories that you need and that you have lots of power or batteries to run all night if that's something you need as well. Of course, you're going to be out there all night, so you want to be comfortable. Bring food, water, warm clothing, snacks, and a comfortable chair. Actually, I ended up taking a couple naps in the middle of the night. You're sort of in a, this gets into the strategy. You're in a rush right when things start because you're trying to catch a bunch of objects right before they set. The Pleiades and M42 and M43, the Orion Nebula, those are some of the quick ones that you catch. I found M74 and M77, these are galaxies. The sky's not completely dark and you're looking at these fainter galaxies and trying to pick them out of that setting sunlight. I used electronic navigation, which made it a little easier, but even with that, it was a little bit challenging. And at the beginning, you're going pretty quickly. You're moving around, trying to catch everything before it goes down, or before, depending on where you are, before it goes behind trees. I was up at Washington Road, and if you've been up there, there are a lot of trees up there. After you get through that, things slow down. You get to move, overhead and catch more of the winter objects in the sky, and that actually works out pretty well. All right, so you get through the night, you catch some things as they come up, and other ones as they set. I had a chance to take a nap. Around midnight, there is a whole bunch of objects in this Virgo galaxy cluster that you see here. A bunch of things there that you are sort of racing around to get all of them. Around 2 a.m., that's when you start to see some of the summer objects coming up. And as time passes around 3:30, it's like now you're getting in a rush again. Trying to catch all those objects right when they get above the horizon. And for me, it was juggling around between where the trees were and all that, seeing where they are. For me, the hardest part at the end was M72 and M73. I was looking at about, we were getting close to 5 o'clock, or actually I think it was after 5 o'clock at this point. The sky's starting to get light. You're looking for these fainter, one's a faint globular cluster and one's a sparse asterism. those were the final challenges there to see before the sun came up. So I was able to do it, using all my electronic navigation, which worked well. There are some purists who say, don't use electronic navigation, you must go out. The real purists, I think, go out and do it by memory, find all of the objects just by star hopping by memory. But you do what you want to do. You can make it your own however you want. Like I said, I use electronic navigation. There are some people, if you've got like a sea star or something like that, some folks go out and photograph every object that night as well. There's also a variation, and that's one of the books that I brought, is this year-round Messier Marathon. I mean, you can obviously enjoy the Messier Marathon objects any time of the year, and you can make a challenge of seeing as many of those as you'd like at any time of the year too. I already mentioned my marathon. As I mentioned, I was up at Washington Road with my 8-inch SCT. I had some silly problems. If you read my posting, the silliest one was that I went up there and found that I left my tripod at home. That was sort of an important thing. Fortunately, 45-minute round trip, I was back with the tripod, and fortunately I got up there in time to see all the objects with that. I also had a problem where I was navigating around, I wasn't paying attention on my cables, and I got caught on the mount, and everything ground to a halt, and I'm like, what is going on? And like one of the ports on my telescope stopped working, and fortunately I was able to juggle some things around and use another port and all that and get things working again. And also I found I had to move a couple times during the night because of all the trees up there. I literally picked up my telescope and carried it over someplace where there wasn't a tree so that I could see that early morning sky. And I mentioned up here we can only see 109, and I was able to see 109. So that was pretty fun and pretty exciting. So with that, if you have any questions, if you're just interested in more about observing, feel free to reach out to me. Any questions about any of that? Or anything else going on in the club? I have a question.
How about for our newbies, who was Messier?
Messier. So Charles Messier was a French astronomer in the 1700s. He's probably most famous for these objects. He was a very famous comet hunter, but he actually did a lot of different things too. I've learned, through a little more reading. These objects originally came out because he was hunting comets, and he would see these things. Oh, that looks like a comet. They're like, oh, that's not a comet. It's something else. And so he made this list of all these Messier objects of things that were not comets that he wanted to keep track of, so he didn't confuse them for comets. So that's who Charles Messier was. If you're in Paris, you can see Charles Messier's grave. If you go, I think my wife and I were there last fall, and you probably heard the famous cemetery where Jim Morrison is buried.
Nope.
Charles Messier is in that same cemetery, along with other folks like Frédéric Chopin and pretty much anybody famous in all sorts of different areas. So you can check it out. And there was actually. And I looked this up right before we went, and I was just curious if there were any astronomical sites in Paris, and I found this, and it turned out there were some Americans living in France about 5 years ago who, I think it was basically found his grave and it had been neglected, and they started a whole group to take care of it. So now the grave is maintained, and flowers are put on it, and things like that, thanks to some folks who needed a COVID project. So, any other questions?
Congratulations, that's quite a feat.
Oh, thanks,
especially since you had to move your telescope.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't imagine.
That's part of the reason I brought that telescope, not my big dog, because that would not work. Yeah.